Hi guys, I'm Alex Gurevich, Managing Director from Javelin Venture Partners. I'm here with David Rogier, CEO and co-founder of MasterClass. David, thanks for being here. Let's just jump into it. Can you tell us a little bit more about your background and what inspired you to start MasterClass?
Yeah. I worked in retail at Tesco, helped them launch a chain of stores here in the United States that did not go well at all. Then got my MBA at Stanford, and then worked
Where we met.
where us met
Yeah.
on the very first day on orientation with that. And then went to work for a professor of mine who runs a seed stage fund. His name is Michael Deering. Learned a lot from him. And after working for him, I kind of missed building stuff. And I told him, and Michael was really gracious and gave me some funding to go start something. And it was horrifying, to be honest, because you don't have any constraints. And I tried a bunch of different ideas, tried a bunch of different ways to think of the ideas. And then I kind of kept going back to my mom's mom, my grandmother who helped raise me. And I think she taught me that education is the only thing that other people can't take away from you. And as soon as I kind of honed in on that, wanted to build something that other people can't take away from others. And one of the nuggets I think that we saw was that there is knowledge locked in the heads of the very best of the world, and for the history of humanity, that usually stays in their own head or is shared with one or two other people, an apprentice or a kid. And most people are paying for knowledge that doesn't come from the best. And if we could make it that you could learn from the very best, it would actually make the world a bit more equal. Mm-hmm. And so we had this crazy idea to make it that you could take classes from folks like Aaron Sorkin and Christina Aguilera, and we launched 2 years ago, and it's gone way beyond our expectations.
Yeah. So you launched in, I believe it was May 2015. You launched with 3 classes. It was Serena Williams, James Patterson, and Dustin Hoffman, and it went pretty well in the beginning. Yeah. But at what point did you think that, hey, oh my God, we actually might have a real business on our hands here? Where was that point where you kind of started feeling?
So I'm going to be honest. I don't know if I've told this to anybody. The first day after we launched, I don't think I've told you this. Yeah. I saw sales for the first day, and I figured the sales for the first day are going to be like 10x whatever they're going to be the next day, right? It's a big launch, and so we did sales our first day, and it was like an okay number, and I went home and I cried because I was like, if this is 10x our best day, we're gonna be like, this is a big problem. And the next day, sales were the same as the first day. And I was like, wait, what? Like if sales keep going like this, then this might be really good. Yeah. And I went over to Reed, who runs our growth team, and I was looking at all the CAC numbers. And I was like, Reed, how are you feeling about stuff? He's like, I'll be honest, David, I was really kind of scared the night before launch, but after I see the CAC numbers, this is gonna be a big business. And I think it was day 2 after our launch.
Go Reed.
Yeah. I think what our team did was so different than I think for most startups. I'd be curious if you see other startups, is we did so much testing beforehand because this was such high upfront cost to get this off the ground that we did polling, we did test sites, we did user interviews. Yeah. So a lot of this from which instructors, from what stuff they're going to teach, to the name, we had done tests before, which I think was a key part to our success and also for us to raise money.
Yeah, well, I think honestly that's one of the things that makes you guys different than other startups, is that you have this focus on quantitative analysis that you combine with the qualitative and the content creation side of things. We have that in some of our portfolio companies, and I have seen a correlation with the better performing ones are the ones that really do focus on metrics analytics and are religious about it. And you guys have you've done that and instilled it in the content creation process, which isn't easy to do, in my opinion. And that really came through when we first talked to you guys. And you guys have maintained that and even grown that capability over time, which actually kind of leads me to my next question. It feels like you're building 2 different businesses here. On one hand, you're building this Silicon Valley product engineering focused company. On the other hand, you're building a Hollywood type entertainment media content company. Yeah. And there are 2 drastically different things, and you're trying to combine those 2 things together. So talk about the challenges of that, And how do you merge those two things, two different companies together into one that has a high performing culture? Like,
Yeah.
How do you do that?
I think the biggest difference between a tech company and a creative company or production company is their belief on quality. So what I mean by that is, I think tech companies, in part because of the lean startup movement and like move fast and break things, they just put stuff out and they're constantly improving stuff and putting brand constantly trying to improve what they have on the product and pushing, which is great to learn. The risk is for a company that's on creative and cares about brand, you can't do that. It can really hurt brand. And so if you look at the film world, they don't do that. I mean, they spend years making one product and then launching it, and they don't get a chance to fix it afterwards. So I think of any film we do, maybe it's a few rounds of editing at most with small focus groups. So I think we've recruited a team that were excelled in their area, right, in tech or film, and then we're so smart and so eager to want to figure out the other method and the other way and kind of merge both. And I think one way why we went to testing was because of that, because we don't get a second chance after we put out a class. If the class sucks, you can improve it, but it's out there in the world. And so the testing allowed us to kind of do that rapid fixing and improvement before putting out our final product. And because we do so many classes, we can learn from each class, which in the film world, you do one film every 2 years, whatever you work on. So we're able to learn every month from every last class. So we look at when an instructor tells a joke and the joke, people stop watching after the joke. And we say, okay, we have to re-edit that or fix that, right? So that allows us to fix stuff for the next class.
What's the focus of the company? What's next for the company? Is it just expanding the library of content? Is it new types of product offerings? What's the big push? What's the big focus?
I mean, what I spend most of my time on is how to scale the company without hurting quality. So I think, I want to we are first in this market. I want to own the market. I think there's a big advantage to owning the market. And so I want to move as fast as we can to kind of grab it. At the same time, we can't hurt our quality. That's quality of the classes, that's quality of our culture. And so figuring out how to scale as fast as you can without impacting those is what we spend most of our time on. That means, I guess how we think about it is as a 100-year plan, and it's not out of arrogance, right? But by doing that, it's a great forcing function because it forces you to think about what actually is the core of the business. Because in 100 years, we aren't going to learn via video, right? We'll probably have it'll go straight into our brains. And so it forces you to say, okay, we're trying to make it possible for anybody in the world to learn from the absolute best, and everything else is just tactics. So just to keep push on that. So that means how we film our classes, what the structure of the format, our product, the community, pushing tech on it. It's to make the best classes.
Since you brought it up, I definitely want to dive a little bit more into that 100-year vision. What do you think? Well, first of all, you answered the question of will MasterClass. You think MasterClass will be around in 50 to 100 years?
Yeah. It better.
Okay, good. What does it look like? I mean, at that point, what does MasterClass look like? What is the social impact of that even? How much thought have you given that, other than saying it's a lofty goal and 100 years sounds great, but what could this become? Yeah.
So I think I have a whole lot of thoughts here, obviously. I think one is we erase the distinction between online education and education. I still think in our lexicon they're split. I think that split erodes. Half to 80% of our students have never taken an online class before. So we are still at the infancy of online education. Two is I think education is changing in general. So you think about when us two were in school, it was facts and information were actually hard to obtain, and that was what we were trying to memorize. If you think about it, at school in the library, you actually had to check out information, right? That was the commodity. Right. Now information is everywhere, right? And it's the cheap thing. And so what I think now education is starting to evolve to is that education's job is to inspire you to want to go learn that, to want to go get that information. And so I think what we're doing now is not only creating a new body of knowledge that hasn't existed or hasn't been shared, but we're trying to create that inspiration moments and those experiences that cause you to want to go master that. So our classes right now aren't a substitute for all other types of learning, but they inspire you to go dig, to actually go dig deeper.
Yep.
Well, I hope somebody who would have never had access to this takes one of the classes they now have access to, and then becomes a master, and then comes to teach on the platform, right? So it's like you see the full cycle impact. And I think in a very small way, and I say this without any arrogance, if you, by letting somebody learn from the best directly from them, you hopefully speed up how long it takes them to become great, right? Because they have a little bit of a head start.
Right.
And by doing that in a very small way, we can potentially speed up the evolution of our species, and that we can learn faster and achieve more.
Right. So congratulations, you just raised a very nice sized Series C. I think $36 million from led by IVP. Not many companies get to that point, so that's fantastic. Talk a little bit about the fundraising process, and how was your Series C different than your Series B or the Series A that we led? A lot of entrepreneurs are probably going to watch this, so I think practical advice would be much appreciated.
Yeah. I mean, I think each stage is different, but there are some things that definitely say the same. I think my number one advice is find somebody who's a pro at capital raising, because they've gone through this and have amazing advice. So find your friends or other entrepreneurs that have already gone through it and already stage above you, at least one stage, right? So I think, look, the early on and seed stage, it's about team and market. It's basically what it's about, right? And that's what the bet is. As you progress, it becomes, I would say for us in the A stage, right, it was about vision and any proof points of this could be real. You have to start to validate some assumptions. In the B and C, it transitions, that vision is still important, becomes more about, have you proven that this is a good business? And not only is this a good business, but does this have potential to be a huge business? I think tips, I would say, and I think things are true is, and you can tell me if you think this is right or wrong, I think always get a warm intro to whoever the potential investor is. Pick very carefully about which partner at the firm you're getting intro in, because you can't switch partners. So, if you want to get money, you want to raise money from IVP, get the intro to the partner who you're going to want to work with and who's best fit. I think picking your partners exceptionally well is really important. I saw this from being an investor, that one of the worst things you can do is raise cash from somebody who's going to be a really bad board member. So figure out, are you aligned on vision? Are you aligned on how you work together? Are you aligned in kind of incentives and time horizon? And that can really make or break a company. I think fundraising is an art, and you need to tell a story through it. And so it's a story, everything about that you're a successful company or a hot company, that the progression is right, that the team is great, that has potential to be huge. Here's another piece of advice. Don't ever send a deck via email. That is like a kiss of death. I've never heard of a company that raises money after sending a deck via email. I think why is because they jump to what all the conclusions are by reading the deck.
They don't have the context for it.
They don't have the context for it. So push for in-person meeting. I think maybe this is a bit from investing days. Like, if an investor says no, you're not going to convince them in that same round to say yes. So it's always good. I think what happens is when you go back and try to convince them, you actually leave kind of a bad taste in their mouth. I think raising capital before you need it. I think one of the pieces of advice I got from one of our advisors, Mark, was the number one job of a CEO is making sure that the startup you have isn't going to run out of money. Because once you run out of money, everything else stops. And so I think we've definitely taken a conservative approach of always raising money a little before that we need it. Our business was capital intensive in the beginning to get off the ground, so we needed to, or it was more helpful to. But it's always easier to raise money. It's easier to raise it when you don't need it.
Right. So if it wasn't obvious enough with your amazing vision of a 100-year company, why should someone work at MasterClass?
I think it's very rare that you get an opportunity to have a positive impact on the world and be part of a good business, and I feel so lucky to be part of it, and I think that's what excites a lot of our team. I also think it's an amazing team who's come here to do the best work of their lives, and I mean, it is world class, so I think a chance to work with them is worth it. Yeah, and I think to be a part of something that's going to hopefully change the world, it comes around once in a long time.
Awesome. David, thank you so much. This has been great, and it's been just an absolute honor to work with you and to be a part of MasterClass in a small way.
Thank you so much.
It's just an incredible company, incredible vision, and I think has a chance to be a once in a lifetime, once in a generation transformational business that's going to impact billions of people now and in the future. So thanks so much. This is great.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
We would not be here without you guys and you, so thank you.
Thanks.